So hey guys, the reason why you just heard Tina Turner's voice in the GoldenEye theme song for James Bond is not because I'm doing a James Bond review for this video, but because I'm going to be reviewing Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, the third installment in the Mad Max franchise, the one right here, and Tina Turner is one of the stars of the film, so I thought it'd be kind of an appropriate way to start off this review here. So in Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome, you guys, like I said, this is the third installment. Even though from what I know about the upcoming Mad Max Fury Road, that story will take place either before Road Warrior or something. It's going to take place before and after one of these current Mad Max films with Mel Gibson. But in Beyond Thunderdome, it takes place when Max is pretty old. He has, gray hairs now. He has really long hair. He doesn't have his car anymore. He's basically wandering the desert, basically whatever he can find and can survive off of. And he gets an opportunity to basically find something to do for himself when he goes to a kind of a really etchy looking city. And they have work for him there. Something happens where he betrays someone's trust, who's played by Tina Turner. She plays a woman named Auntie Entity, who a lot of the people in this small town seem to look up to. And series of events happen with her, and basically Max gets banished out into the desert through a certain form of punishment that basically will leave him left for dead, from what they were hoping. But their plans fall flat when a um, tribe of children find Max in the desert, and basically it gives Max an opportunity to kind of start a new beginning for himself, find him do something valuable with his life again, like what he did with the Road Warrior, where he helped out that tribe in that movie. And this also gives him an opportunity, not only to gain the trust with this children tribe, but to also get back at the people who were going to leave him for dead in that town that originally was going to be his new beginning, but it turned out this tribe of children is the new beginning for him instead. So overall, guys, this was a pretty disappointing Mad Max sequel for me. I'm going to be completely honest with you. I know probably the really hardcore Mad Max fans are probably going to, praise it obviously, but I really found this to be a pretty big step down compared to Road Warrior, which I did review recently, and I still have yet to review the first Mad Max, so I got to continue looking for that one since I do know the Mad Max 4 is coming up soon. I really hope to watch all three of these before that new film comes out. But yeah, like I said, I really felt like this was a pretty big step down compared to Mad Max 2, and that's really too bad because George Miller's a really talented director. Babe and Happy Feet were very well known for him as well outside of Mad Max. And it was just really too bad to see this third installment being kind of a step down from the second one. So for my positives and negatives of Mad Max 3, I like how in the third movie there's almost no roads left at all. The current state of the apocalypse is basically everything's a desert now, everything's a wasteland, everything's completely dry. Water's more scarce now too, on top of gasoline being more scarce. I really like how George Miller kind of did this. How the first film, from what I know about it, because I haven't reviewed that one yet, that the apocalypse is just started. A lot of things are still around. It's not quite as harsh as some of the later Mad Max films. Mad Max 2, the apocalypse is pretty big. It's pretty far into it, but roads are still around. Maybe a few other things are still around, but it's still in pretty bad shape. And by number 3, like what I was talking about here, it's in the worst possible shape. Everything's scarce now. Everything's dry. Everything's a wasteland. Almost nothing's around anymore. But like I said, I like how George Miller kind of had that continuity in this franchise. I also thought the visuals were very fitting in this movie. They once again continued very good visuals for this movie. We really get the impression that Max is in a really harsh place, or if it's sandy out there, or if he's in an outdoor weather where there's a sandstorm coming or whatever. They really get the impression that these characters are in these situations, and like I said, these visuals really fit well for the movie that they're going for. I also thought the third act of the film had some pretty decent action in it, and I like the overall third act in general. It was definitely in the vein of a Mad Max film that you would expect, with the car chases and, rather it's a big train or a big truck, and all these enemy cars are trying to clash into it and destroy it. So it was definitely in the tradition of the Road Warrior for the third act. So I guess that's what I liked about it so much, is just because it reminded me of the Road Warrior so much. But like I said, I gotta get to my negatives here, but like I said, the third act is nice, but there's some things before the third act that don't turn out so well. There's not as much over the top acting in this film, so I guess that is a plus. But like I said, there is some other things happening in the movie that unfortunately fell through compared to Road Warrior. But overall, acting wise, I felt acting wise this was better. You know, with Tina Turner and Mel Gibson and all of them, and I felt like their supporting cast in a way didn't feel as over the top. I guess you could say as Road Warrior. But at the same time, they're kind of different toned movies, so it's kind of hard to compare the acting. But at the same time, too, the Mad Max franchise, I think in general, was never really well known for its Oscar league acting or anything. But acting wise, to me, I thought Mad Max 3 acting wise was a little better than Mad Max 2, but that's just for the acting department. Now for my negatives, since I have quite a few of them. Mad Max 3 really shouldn't have been PG-13. I really think that wears down a Mad Max experience. I think every Mad Max film should be rated R, and from what I heard about Mad Max 4, it sounds like it's going to be rated R, which it should be. Because this film was PG-13, and I really felt that that kind of wear down the experience. You know, they either cut away from a death or they cut away from a situation that was probably going to be a lot more violent if the film was rated R. And it just kind of wore the experience down. I really felt like rated R should have been the rating for this movie because I'm even looking at the DVD here. Um, Road Warrior was rated R too. I also thought the character of Mad Max just wasn't really that likable this time around. He's mean to people. He does pretty brutal things to these kids that are in this tribe that he gets, invited into. I just didn't like the character as much this time around. That's really too bad because he was really interesting in The Road Warrior, and I like the psychology of the character even. This time around, I just didn't care. I just really didn't. I couldn't get into what Mel Gibson was doing this time around. I don't know if it was him or if the way he was written or if it was George Miller's decision to make him this way. Whatever they did for this third movie, it really just I didn't like the guy, and I guess that's one thing I don't like about the movie. Then I goes to my next point. This film has a pretty terrible script. There's pig poop jokes. There's writing at some points that just isn't very good. There's just a lot of time spent with this kid tribe that I just really don't care about to begin with. I feel like the film dedicates its time to the wrong things at certain points. It's just not a very good script. Writing wise, this is probably the weakest Mad Max film from what I've seen so far. This film doesn't have enough road time. It spends so much time with this kid tribe that it really doesn't spend a lot of time on the road. And I think that's one thing that's going to wear this film down for a lot of people, whether you just saw it like me or whether you saw this back in the 80s. I think one thing that really hurt Mad Max and is going to hurt it over time is that there's roughly probably no more than 25 minutes of road rage footage, unlike the first two movies. And I think that really hurt it because I think the Mad Max films are all about this. It's really too bad that number three couldn't do more of this too. And that goes to a point that I kind of brought up, not too long ago too, that the child tribe that Mel Gibson's, Mad Max gets invited into at one point in the movie that they spend a lot of time with, they're not very interesting. And I really wish I could have found a way to get more interested in them, or if the writing could have been better for this tribe, because whatever they were doing, I just really thought that they weren't very interesting characters, and that's too bad because they spent a lot of time with them. And I feel for me, if you're going to spend a lot of time on something in the film, you have to make sure it's good. Unfortunately, what the main focus of the film is not very good. And then one thing George Miller did this time around again that I really hoping that he was going to improve off of from Road Warrior is he's not very good at lighting night scenes again. There's a lot of night scenes here that aren't very well lit, and it's really hard to see what's going on in some of these night scenes in the movie, and that's something that I actually complained about too in the Road Warrior. So George Miller, if you can do it, I'm sorry, but you really don't know how to film a night scene. So if you do, either let someone else light it for you, or don't make your films take place at night. I feel his films are better off in the daytime. This film also has some pretty forgettable villains. Even Tina Turner's characters here is pretty forgettable. Just not as fun as Lord Humongous. There's even a character in this film that's like Master and Blaster. They're the midget and the one of it's like a smart midget and a really tough dumb big muscular guy who's like the muscle of the team, and it's supposed to be the Master Blaster. And I don't know, just really forgettable villains. So if you're looking for a good villain in a Mad Max film, Mad Max 3 is not the film to go to. And then that goes to one thing I mentioned about the bad script from earlier. There's some pretty bad pig jokes, like pig poop jokes in the movie. Really gets old after a while. Really gets irritating and repetitive, and just really not funny. I feel like they tried to make it funny, and it just wasn't. So overall, guys, I'm gonna give Mad Max 3 a 6 out of 10. There's a few trinkles of a good movie here, but there's just not quite enough to make me recommend it. Only if you're a really hardcore Mad Max film, I think that's the only reason why you would have to watch something like this. But just re-examine the Road Warrior, I guess. And like I said, I haven't seen the first Mad Max film yet, so that will probably be something I'll more than likely recommend. But Mad Max 3 Beyond Thunderdome, didn't like it. 6 out of 10. Really not that great. It's not terribly awful, but it's not terribly good either. So I would just recommend just staying away from this one. I really didn't think it was that good of a Mad Max sequel.